there didn't use this time to think about some audacious things you want to accomplish in your personal and professional life. I did so well starting off. There we go. Okay. So I want to start this journey with you and begin with the best 24 hours of my life. And now that is a bold statement because I've had some awesome experiences. So much so, my family and friends call them my a-hole stories. Trying not to cuss. But this day took place in November 2012. It was full of randomness, and I was 37 years old. I share my age because it is central to this journey. At the age of 29, a friend of mine told me about an article that had the exercise of writing down 30 things you want to accomplish by 30. Now, nothing makes me happier than a list. It lowers my anxiety, it helps me focus, it gives me a framework and North Star to how I spend my time. This is a picture of most of my lists. I've now digitized them, but I keep these in my safe because they are considered one of my prized possessions. When I made my 30 by 30 list, I had audacious goals, I had mundane goals, and I also had a few questionable ones. And every year I make a new one, and each year the list gets longer and a little harder to create. And I'm currently working on my 46 things to accomplish by 46. So going back to the best 24 hours of my life, picture it. I'm on a solo trip halfway around the world, taking a cooking class, as you can see, very serious and studious in that picture. I used my voice and made deals. I got outside of my comfort zone by just doing stuff like the Muay Thai fight, watching a random rock concert, and then to end that day, getting to the hotel with just enough time to pack and get to the airport. Epic. I've had several similar experiences since that day, but this annual exercise has helped me to grow, gain confidence, and honestly put things out in the atmosphere that has ultimately benefited me professionally and personally. So this is where you start to write down some things. This has been almost a 16-year journey. I want to share some of the highlights and things I pulled from these experiences. But first, I ask you to jot down one thing you want to accomplish or do by your next birthday, even if your birthday is tomorrow. You don't have to share it, but do that now. I'll give you a couple of seconds.
Really hard to think right away.
You're going to continue to do that. And even as I'm talking, please continue to add more to your list. For our time together, there are four major themes I would like to share. One, be audacious, push yourself to the next level. Two, on the flip side, boring is okay too. Three, celebrate the small wins. And four, forward thinking and living. So, first thing, do epic shit. Excuse my language, I'll try not to curse. This is the motto I try to live by. Epic doesn't always have to be the wildest thing. The definition of epic depends on who you are, what you want, and honestly, what makes the most sense in your life at any given time. For example, in 2021, an epic experience was genuinely putting on my clothes and going to Costco. Like, seriously. I pulled some of my goals from past and present lists. I haven't reached all of these things because I can only be so awesome. But every year when I create these lists, I have carryover. There has never been a year that I accomplished everything I said I would, and that is okay. For more context, when I created my 30 by 30 list, I had the audacity to put down be Dr. J. At that point, I wasn't even enrolled in grad school. I didn't even have a master's degree, but it was a goal that I wrote down every year. And on my 37 by 37 list, I was able to cross it out. I also went back and crossed it out on all the lists from the previous 7 years. Epic feeling. So, when you look at your list and what you already jotted down, can you think of something even more audacious? I'll give you a couple of seconds just to kind of think about that and write it down.
I have a quick question. Audacious should be achievable too, right?
It should be the way I look at it is something that I can control. So, for instance, I never put down, I want to get married next year. I can't force someone to marry me, but I can definitely love them. So, it's something that you can control,
Okay.
something that's in your power. Think big. Think big. So, my professional life has been just as epic as my personal. These days were epic because they were major pivot points in my career. Although each of these days were epic and pivotal, they also came with great cost, either to my pride, raised doubts in my abilities, or even took a financial toll. For example, when I quit teaching, I left a 12-year career, a pension, great health insurance, and at that time I was making $90,000 a year. I didn't want to become a principal or administrator, so I found a job in a research department for a tech marketing company. It was an experience where a team of published researchers, who were all women, was led by a person who let everyone know he barely graduated from high school, dropped out of college, but he knew a guy. And that's how he got the job. He was the VP of research. Not only that, it was also a $15,000 pay cut, and I didn't get summers off. I only lasted 6 months. This was the first demoralizing experience where I learned you can make an epic leap and still can get disappointed. Now, I never returned to teaching, and I did eventually have an epic summer in Italy that year. But the next big pivot points in my career was when I found my second job in tech, which was a full 3 years after I left the classroom. For this job, I came in at the bottom of the ladder. Didn't manage anyone. I was literally the lowest paid person on the team, and I had a lot of responsibility. This was a job to get on the ladder, but I climbed that ladder quickly because I follow the same advice I give to my team and my mentees. One, I ask for what I want. Two, I am clear about the problem I want to solve. And three, I have a well thought out plan and I'm ready to execute. For my promotion to VP, it was a role that did not exist. I went from an IC to having a team of more than 20 around the US and UK. I walked into that role with a clear plan, and I was able to execute by being able to make an impact to the business, the product, and the users. The same thing happened when Google recruited me. I asked for a much bigger compensation package that was originally offered. Also, in my first one on one with my manager, I said the following: when you get promoted, I want to be the next logical person to fill your role. I was promoted the following year. Set a goal so big that you can't achieve it until you grow into the person who can. Second, the mundane. The mundane is small wins, but they need to be celebrated just as much as the audacious. I purposely sit in this chair to watch sunrises. Another example of a great sunrise was the end of that epic 24 hours in Thailand. It's easy to forget about your physical, mental, social, and emotional health. I am someone who tries to have a work life balance, but the reality of long hours and endless meetings cause me to forget or deprioritize myself. I add these to every list every year. They are small things, but they are personal goals that put me first. This list, these lists reflect how I choose to spend my time. It is a framework and helps me make decisions about how I spend my time And quite honestly, I've never been disappointed about getting up early to see a sunset, oop, see a sunrise, nor finishing a book or getting out of my head for a Zoom therapy session. Looking at your list again. Thinking of my list as an example, look at yours and add some mundane things you want to accomplish by your next birthday. I'll give you a couple of seconds. So, just like my personal life, my professional life is full of the mundane. These mundane goals are purposeful and, most importantly, help me execute, which is the key indicator for success in any job. I have standing focus time on my calendar with a do not schedule banner. I start my day early and go through my triage P0 emails and tasks. And if I have time, I look at P1s. I schedule lunch every day, 30 minutes to an hour. And I also have what I call a moment block, which is about 15 minutes that I try to do throughout the day. I end each day triaging my email. Net zero is the goal. And a chunk of my email goes to end of week reading reserved for Fridays. I also end the day prepping for my next day meetings by reading the agenda and asking for one if there's one not attached. And every Friday is no meeting day. And I spend the bulk of my time reading those triage emails and newsletters. These items may not make it on my mundane or my annual list, I should say, but the daily tasks have definitely provided a framework to how I choose the right projects, build a network, and make the time to be selfish and take care of myself. Number three, finding a path. Every year I go through the exercise and I read and reflect on the prior list. I've done this for 16 years, and it is both shocking on some of the audacious things I've strived for and met, but it's also comical on the things that I wasn't even close to getting there. It's comical because my path seems so clear and purposeful, especially because I feel like I'm in a place that I strived for so long to get to. But the reality is that depending on the year and the list, my path was all over the place. Sometimes I even went in circles. I wanted to buy a home in my hometown of Sacramento, but I also wanted to move to the East Coast, and then I wanted to move to San Francisco. I wanted to be brave enough to take myself to dinner, but I also wanted to visit 100 countries by myself. I wanted to become an administrator at a high school, and I also wanted to be a published author for public policy. All the things I wrote were valid and genuine at the time. They also clearly reflected the windy path to how I got to where I'm at now, including being an administrator, a school administrator, gave me the skills of balancing an eight-figure budget for a school district and managing a 100 plus person staff. I sold everything and quit my job to move to Rhode Island to be with my then boyfriend and now husband. I did that at the age of 39. My dissertation, book, and research was all about financial education and policy, the complete polar opposite of what my career had been in K through 12 education. But my first VP job was to create content on financial literacy. My first Google job was to manage a policy team. I wanted to move, and I moved 7 times in 5 years and ended up in San Francisco, where I'm currently at. And I've traveled to more than 50 countries, mostly by myself, and I've had a lot of solo dinners and adventures around the world. Epic. When you have the experience of going somewhere new, it feels like it's taking forever to get there. But when you're on your way back home, time flies. When people get lost, we end up going in circles. That's actually a thing if you are a hiker. But for me, it has helped me to kind of stop, reflect, pivot, find or redefine my path. And sometimes I've stumbled into things, but the skills and experiences I've picked up throughout my life has gotten me to where I'm at now. So now it's again going back to your goal list. What are some things you would like to accomplish that may seem outside of your path? Or what are some things that would help make progress on the path you're currently on? I'll give you a few seconds. I've shared how my personal and professional life is not a straight line. The idea of these lists are to think out loud, to put it out in the universe, and to challenge yourself. When I question myself, doubt my ability, or wonder what is next, I go back and I review and I reflect. Crossing out those audacious and small wins are so fulfilling, but the practical steps I add every year are just as important. For example, I want to be able to retire at 50. At 30, I wanted to pay off one credit card. At 34, I wanted to max out my 401k every year. At 37, I wanted to be debt free. At 40, I wanted to save 60% of my income each year. At 45, I wanted to be a millionaire. At 46, I want to buy my forever home. I now have 54 months until I retire. Number 5, the future. Before I end, the last theme is about the future. Making a to-do list is literally thinking about the future. But for my list, I highlight some big things I want to do on upcoming milestones. I didn't always do this, but as I grow older, I get more audacious and strategic. Plus, it gives me something to look forward to. For me, 50 is my next big one. I'm already getting ready for it. I've started that list. And for the last exercise, I want you to start thinking about your next big milestone. Jot down one future goal, 10, 20, 30 years down the road. I'll give you a few seconds. I recently spent 30 days with my mom in Italy. Even though she is 69, she was able to walk 12,000 steps almost every day. I strive to be able to take care of her when she no longer can and to stay healthy to live the life my parents dreamed for me. I also strive to think strategically about how I want to spend the next 5 years of my career. I ultimately want to have the choice not to work, to be financially free, but I'm also someone who still has some audacious career goals. It is a balance, but ultimately it's a challenge to maximize my time professionally and financially, leaving the possibility of excelling in some other way without necessarily doing the 9 to 5. I put myself in an odd position. I want to retire in 54 months, but I also want to be C suite. Now, I have confidence, but I know that I will not report to Susan or Sundar in such a short amount of time. But I can set myself up for a role that will meet my financial and professional goals. There are a lot of C suite positions out there. On the flip side, I want to retire and hopefully have a good 30 to 40 years of financial freedom. Working for Google definitely sets me up for that reality. So is leaving Google even an option? Honestly, I'm not sure. But I want to make sure that I set myself up to have options. At the age of 49, I might get the chance to do both things. Or I've reached my financial goals and I can experiment as a C suite in another company. And who knows, maybe I might find a whole other passion and sit on a board of directors or go around and give keynote speeches in my retirement. Again, the goal is giving myself options. So, with that, I close with this. Please take time to go back and look at your list, add more to it, think of epic stuff, the mundane, the next steps in your path, and what you want for your future. Be judicious with your time on this earth, but also have fun with it. Thank you for joining me on this journey. And that is all I have.
Ah, London, it is so inspiring. I don't know how you do it, but 30 years you have to do this. I plan every year for sure. But then it was an eye opener. I haven't even thought about